Greetings.
Salutations.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Kevin.
Welcome to
The FrenZone.
Today in the FrenZone, we're discussing something a little different. If you'll allow us to veer off course here for about 10 minutes, Kenton and I want to discuss transhumanism. We tried to touch on this in our very first video on VR.
A little bit.
But it is such a wide-ranging topic that we really didn't have a chance to give it its due. So here it is in its entirety, the transhumanist argument. So, fanfare, please.
Oh, fanfare. Okay, guys, for those of you who don't know, transhumanism in its loose definition is the evolution of humanity beyond our physical and mental constraints through the use of science and technology.
So basically, you plus technology, transhumanism.
Yeah.
So, by that very reasoning, you could argue that the very first transhumans were the very first, was maybe Homo habilis, where when they first learned to make tools.
Yeah.
Or even maybe the first time an ape picked up a stick.
Well, anything where you're enhancing, the human capability through...
Kenton's a transhuman.
Technically, yes, because I wear glasses. I'm going past my own physical limitation through the use of technology.
But we want to take it a little further than that. Max Moore, the philosopher, laid down the groundwork for the futurist transcendental movement. Wow, that's a mouthful to say.
Yeah.
The futurist transcendental movement. There
Originally
we go.
in the 1990s. He came out with it.
And where it is now is through some very inspiring science fiction. Our scientists are now pushing ever closer towards something called the singularity. Now, we've mentioned Ray Kurzweil's name in the previous video, and for good reason, is because he is probably the leading proponent of the transcendental humanist movement. What's interesting about this whole thing is that whilst many of us would never plug into the Matrix or download our brains...
Well, some might.
Most of us are already augmenting our everyday lives with technology. I mean, how many of you walk around with your phone in your pocket, cradling it like it's some kind of infant?
Well, everybody does, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you think of it... I don't necessarily think that technology, that kind of technology, as in like your mobile phone, takes you beyond being human. I mean, it does allow us to... Well, I mean, that's a good argument. Because
that is a good argument.
It is a good argument.
And that's really the argument of the transhumanist movement. At what point does this merging with technology start to affect who you are as a human being?
Yeah.
And let's just take a look at some of these. Now, simple little augmentations from these tattoos that have LED lights are growing more and more sophisticated, where they're now actually capable of applying little circuitry onto your skin, embedded in a Band-Aid that can actually monitor the state of your baby, and the mother can monitor it on her own private device.
Yeah.
In this case here, what you've got is a man who's capable of controlling a cybernetic arm, not just with muscle movements and motor reflexes, but actually there's nodes hooked into his cerebral cortex that allow him to think and move that arm. And we are coming ever closer to Deus Ex and the future of humankind.
We're starting to push boundaries here. We're starting to push boundaries with what is basically what we can do with technology in terms of our own physiology. But that will continue to push things forward. I mean, there's even, where is it? It's over in Europe, in Denmark?
No, Belgium, I
Belgium?
think. I'm pretty sure it was Belgium.
There's a company that has started basically microchipping their entirety of their employees.
Now, it's voluntary. Keep that in mind. This is not a Big Brother situation. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to give people little RFID chips that allow them to open certain doors, but also use it as a cashless pay system.
Yeah, monitor your hours that you're there.
Well, they can monitor everything from the time you enter and leave the building to the time you go to the bathroom to how much time you spend on your lunch break. Yeah. Certain biorhythms of your very existence. I mean, my goodness, they could probably get it sophisticated enough that you wouldn't be able to lie anymore. But this whole thing here actually raises a really important point of the whole transhumanist argument, is the idea of security and privacy. Well, yeah. At a certain point, it is without a doubt that human beings will enter a cashless society.
Absolutely.
Where chips will not necessarily be mandatory, but everybody will use them, and those that don't will slowly get phased out.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to go that way. There's no way it can't. I mean, we already... Think of it this way. How many people use cash these days versus an FPOS card?
Oh, I very rarely have cash in my pocket.
It's going to be a
Never.
natural evolution to move beyond that FPOS card to something that's basically just surgically implanted on you.
And I think once you've got the integration into the human system, what is being capable of being recorded and who can access that data becomes a very real issue.
Well, I mean,
so security, privacy, when you're dealing with money and
personal
data, that's a really serious thing. So
it is a serious thing. We're already having trouble trying to deal with this situation, with this topic already, even now. When you think of your entire internet browser history, the whole entirety of your metadata for that is kept for a certain period of time. So people can tell what you're looking at. I mean, it's only available just to the corporation that currently...
Which is, of course, there to make them better marketers and sellers to better target to their audience. Yeah. I mean, is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't know, but...
It's a question for, I think a lot of people and human beings as a collective to try and answer.
Human beings as a collective. I think it's important when dealing with this whole idea of transhumanism and personal data, money, that you do address certain precautionary principles. And a lot of transhumanists are quite adamant about placing these guidelines or laws into place so that certain lines are not crossed over. And I think what we'll begin to see as the future rolls forward is a lot more firewalls, and security, the likes of which we've never seen. Perhaps more similar to the blockchain of the Bitcoin, which allows a finite number of. This is totally different. Actually, we'll talk about Bitcoin in another video. We'll save that for next time. Yeah. Continuing on the transhumanist argument, you touched on something just before. Yeah. The collective.
The collective.
Human beings, are we destined for collective mind?
Well, okay. When you talk about transhumanism, and I think most people will continue to, associate it more and more with human beings directly integrating with technology, as in your brain. Now, if you're going to start doing that and you're going to create an instance where humanity, everybody, can access a unified digital space, you're going to get instances where the individual stops becoming important.
Oh my God, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Tron music? The grid.
The grid.
Oh my God, sorry. Okay, good.
But we would be on the grid. We would be able to access a digital space where everybody is there. So more so than just your modern day social media where you can get connected with people you don't necessarily live near. We'll be able to not only touch other people around the world, but be able to integrate directly.
Man, that blows my mind.
So once you start doing that and you start quite literally touching minds, humanity, I think, Gracie, humanity will be...
We'll be right back.
Humanity will begin to actually... I think you start to wonder is that when will we start to lose our sense of individuality? The more time we spend touching minds universally.
Hold up. Okay, so before we continue on that line of thinking, if any of you are thinking personally that this still seems, centuries away, this is not going to happen, Elon Musk, our favorite eccentric billionaire of the month, SpaceX, Hyperloop, has currently invested a great deal of money in a company called Neuralink, and they're working on something called a neural lace. So literally a wireless link to technology. And the reason I think a lot of people are going towards that, especially people like him, is we're also recognizing the rising threat of becoming obsolete in the face of artificial superintelligence.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. However, you'll have to wait till next video for that one.
Oh, yeah. VR, we wanted to cover so much. Transhumanism and
naturally progressing into AI. That's the topic.
But we'll get back to that in our next video.
Yeah.
So, the collective. Are we destined for it? Are we all going to be linked together, sharing our thoughts with each other in digital cyberspace for all eternity? Because that's where this has all been going.
Yeah, absolutely.
The idea of transhumanism can really be traced as far back as Nietzsche and the idea of the Übermensch, sort of. And as we've gotten, at least throughout the last 100 years, from everything from Brave New World and the works of Aldous Huxley to The Matrix to even the more recent Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, yeah.
It's all been pushing towards this idea of being able to cut your consciousness from the body and paste it into the wire.
Or copy and paste, whichever. I mean, it's going to be...
Well, if that's... Okay, the idea of the transcendental zombie.
Soma.
Oh man, brilliant game. Scared the hell out of me. I honestly thought I was living in a simulation for a week after that.
Yeah, well...
Are you a simulation, Morty? Are you a simulation? Are you a simulation, you son of a bitch? Seriously, I couldn't get it out of my head because I have... Ever since I was a little boy, I was very aware of the idea of death and my own...
Most people are.
My own mortality. And from a very young age, I think I was always really afraid to die. And this idea of being able to transcend death.
Well, everybody's afraid to die, I think, at some point in time or another in their lives. I mean, whether people come to terms with it, start to accept it. But that's, I think, one of the more interesting aspects of transhumanism. And the most interesting aspect of it is the ability for us as people to be able to live beyond our physical selves. So technology is going to get to the point, I mean, once you start getting into being able to download yourself into a digital space, whether, being able to just access it, it's not that much of a step before we can then just permanently access such a digital space.
And but then at what point do you stop being human?
Then you have to define humanity.
Okay, let's define humanity as a broom.
Okay.
Humanity as a broom. Sweeping the nations.
Handle, bristles, head.
Handle, bristles, head. Okay, so let's say I have to replace the handle.
Yeah.
It snaps one day.
Yeah.
I replace the handle. It's still my broom.
Yes.
The essence of the broom remains.
Yeah.
If I then, over time, realize that the head breaks and I've got to replace the head.
Yep.
All right? I've now got a new handle and a new head, but it's still my broom. Looks exactly the same, acts and works exactly the same.
Yeah.
You can go on and have to replace the bristles and so on and so forth, and you end up doing that with multiple parts of the broom multiple times over many, many years.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue just go out and buy a fucking vacuum cleaner, but
It would be easier.
I think the point is that the essence of what humanity is would remain on through that. But we may have to detach ourselves from this ideology of individualism. Is there any place for the individual
self?
Well, yeah. Is there any place for the individual physical identity in this world if we're all one?
Well, I mean,
I say yes. Singularity, whilst is probably the destiny of our world, is...
a lot of people would argue it. I mean, you got to think it's already part and parcel in most spiritual aspects.
I think that we would, and what we're literally considering here, is creating a spiritual world, a digital world of spirit, so to speak. I use the term spirit loosely, call it energy or whatever consciousness can be defined as, if we ever figure out a way to cut and paste, not just copy and paste. I think that we might actually find a way to interact with ourselves and perhaps even hack the universe itself to where we can go back to any point in history, experience anything, literally save humanity and give birth to the God that we have been hailing as our supreme being since the dawn of man.
That's deep. That's deep. That's I have to say that that's deep and probably something that we're not going to answer anytime soon.
No.
I mean, ideally, guys, we just want to try and fire your imaginations a little bit, make you try and think, ask some questions, do a little bit of research on your own.
Yeah, let us know what you find. If there's anything cool, we'd love to do it. We'd love to share that in a next video. But with all that said, I think there's only one thing left to say. And
Absolutely.
that would be thanks for sharing your time with us.
And we'll see you again.
Farewell.
Flip